pupils, parents, and guardians. Let me start by thanking you for being a part of all our remote learning platforms, particularly our television program, The Classroom in Your Home. Each feedback has been awesome. Good job, you. Our teachers have been working assiduously to bridge the learning loss during this critical period. Therefore, I am pleased to inform you that the Classroom in Your Home has been extended to accommodate the lower primary classes and a dedicated lesson to cater for our special needs pupils in line with our mandate of providing an all-inclusive and quality basic education in our dear state. This program is fully sponsored by the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, and supported by the Lagos State Universal Basic Education Board under the COVID-19 Blended Learning Intervention Initiative. Please encourage your wards to tune in and take every advantage of this laudable program. Also remember, this pandemic is not over. Let us continue to abide by all health and safety guidelines as stipulated by the government. At LASUBEB, we are determined to leave no child behind in our quest to improve the standard of basic education in our state. Thank you.
Hello pupils, you're welcome to another exciting edition of your favorite program on television, The Classroom in Your Home, a program sponsored by the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, and packaged by the Lagos State Universal Basic Education Board, LASUBEB. It is to ensure that you are academically engaged despite school's closure. I am Auntie Fumi, your English Studies teacher, and I have with me your wonderful teachers, the mathematician, Uncle Agbaje.
Hello, children.
That's your math teacher. And your popular teacher, Uncle Popo.
Hello, pupils.
He's going to take you through all the subjects on the general studies. And we have our sign language interpreter in the house as well, Uncle Niyi. Together, we are bringing the classroom into your home. Please stay tuned. Studies lesson today, we will be looking at adjectives. Yes, we're going a step further to look at adjectives. But before we go into the learning objective, let's have the correction to our homework. Did you do your homework? I trust you. You were asked to identify the verb in the sentence you were given, or the sentences you were given, and you are to indicate whether they are finite or non-finite. Auntie Fumi got 6 out of 6. What about you? 5, 4, or even 3? There is no problem. I still celebrate you with a chair. You are amazing children. Now let's go to the learning objective for today's lesson. Don't forget I said our topic today is adjectives. Now, by the end of today's lesson, you should be able to describe adjectives, say what adjectives are, and describe them as well. Then you should also be able to list and identify classes of adjectives. Are you ready? Relax. Sit up. Good. Let's go into the lesson proper. What is an adjective? What is an adjective? Yes, an adjective is a word which describes a noun or a pronoun. An adjective is a word which describes a noun or a pronoun. Good. What are the classes of adjectives? Before we go into the classes of adjectives, I believe you understand what adjectives are now. An adjective would describe what a noun Remember now, a name of any person, animal, place, or thing, or even ideas. And you know pronouns, yes, used instead of noun. So an adjective describes what a noun or a pronoun, what they do. Now to the classes of adjectives. We have many classes or various classes of adjectives. We are first of all going to talk about adjectives of quality. Adjectives of quality. That is the descriptive adjectives. Adjective that describes. This adjective describes how a noun or a pronoun is. A descriptive adjective describes, as the name implies, a descriptive adjective describes how a noun or a pronoun is. For example, good. Ade is a good boy. Tolani is a tall girl. So, good, bad, young, old, short, tall, and so on and so forth. They are descriptive adjectives because they describe how a noun or a pronoun is. Adjectives of number. Adjectives of number. What does that do? Adjectives of number state how much of something there is, or the number of persons or things. Adjectives of number state how much of something there is, or the number of persons or things. They are of two kinds. The first one is adjective of definite number. Adjectives of definite number. These are the cardinals. You know what cardinals mean? When we're talking about original numbers like 1, 2, 7, 9, 15, those are the cardinals. We're talking about adjective of definite number. And now the ordinal. We've talked about the cardinal, 1, 2, 3. Now the ordinal, which shows position, like first, second, 10th, 11th, 25th, and so on. So we've said something about the cardinals and the ordinals. Hold on to that, please. Now, after adjective of numbers, we have of definite numbers, we have adjectives of indefinite numbers. These are words which do not give specific numbers. Adjectives of indefinite number do not give specific numbers. Example of adjective of indefinite numbers are some, any, few, many, all, much, several, enough. Did you get that? Good. Now, proper adjectives. Proper adjectives. Proper adjectives are formed from proper nouns. You remember our proper noun lesson? Yes. That was where we talked about some adjectives that start with capital letters, or some nouns that start with capital letters. Proper adjectives are formed from proper nouns. For example, Lagos is a proper noun. And if it is used to describe another noun or pronoun, it becomes an adjective. Lagos is a proper noun because it's the name of a place. It is a proper noun. And if it is used to describe another noun, or you use it to describe another pronoun, it becomes an adjective. For example, for a proper adjective, we have a Lagos boy, an American dollar, a Ghanaian city. Did you get that? Yes, it has become a proper adjective. The fourth one is distributive adjective. Remember, we've talked about adjective of numbers, adjective of quality, proper adjective, and now the distributive adjective. What does distributive adjectives do? They show how things or people are distributed. They show how things or people are distributed. For example, each, every, either, neither. Those are talking about how things or people are distributed. The fifth one is the demonstrative adjectives. Demonstrative adjectives. This points out persons or things. It points out persons or things. For example, that, this, those. Those are demonstrative adjectives. Note that they are also demonstrative pronouns depending on their usage in sentences. It depends on the way you use them in sentences. Examples. Demonstrative adjective. This car is old. This car is old. This is demonstrating that this particular car is old. As a demonstrative pronoun, this is an old car. This is an old car. Now talking about another class of adjective, possessive adjectives. Possessive adjectives. What does it mean to possess? Yes, for something to belong to someone. So, for possessive adjectives, we have words like my, your, is, hers, theirs, and its. Although they look like pronouns, but they are adjectives, and since they show possession, they are called possessive adjectives. They are called possessive adjectives because they show possession. Example, my father has gone to Lagos. My, not your own father, my own father, not any other father. My father has gone to Lagos. That is the possessive adjective there, my. This is his bag. This is his bag, not her bag, not their bag. This is his bag, showing possession. It's evaluation time. I want to check how attentive you've been in the lesson. So, are you ready? Yes. Good. Pick out the adjectives in each of the following sentences. Pick out the adjective in each of the following sentences. The girl wore a yellow dress. A tall man came here. He ate 10 mangoes. The baker sells good bread. And he found the lost ball. You have just 30 seconds to write the answers only. And your time starts now. Eyes on me. By now you must have finished writing the answers. Yes, I trust you. You are smart children. Now let's do the correction together. We are going to do the correction and you will mark immediately. Are you ready? Good. These are the answers. The girl wore a yellow dress. The adjective in the sentence is yellow. Was that what you wrote? Then, well done. Mark, you're right. Number 2, a tall man came here. A tall man came here. The adjective there is tall. Did you get that too? I trust you. Number 3, he ate 10 mangoes. How many of you can finish 10 mangoes at the same time? You can? Wow. Wow. So he ate 10 mangoes. The adjective there is 10. The baker sells good bread. The baker sells good bread. The adjective is good. And number 5, he found the lost ball. He found the lost ball. The adjective is lost. I got 5 out of 5. What about you? You too. Good job, you. Then I must celebrate you with a chair. Now, it's homework time. Homework. This is your homework. Please copy and do them at your leisure. Don't forget that doing your homework is the only thing that can guarantee you packs of Good Life Magic Juice. I know you love taking juice. So, do your homework. We have come to the end of the lesson for today, the English Studies lesson. I hope you had a nice time studying adjectives and the classes of adjectives. I did too. It is time for me to hand you over to Uncle Agbaje for the mathematics lesson. Don't forget, I am proud of you, but you must do your homework. Bye.
Hello children, you're welcome to this segment of the program The Classroom in Your Home. It is mathematics time and we're bound to have some fun. I am Uncle Agbaje. Today in mathematics, we will move on to a new topic, even though it is not unrelated to our previous work. That's what's going to make it all the more interesting. We'll be studying ratio. Perhaps you've heard about it, perhaps not. Have no fear, my friend. It is going to be easy. To that work on ratio. What are our learning objectives? By the end of this lesson, we should be able to appreciate what ratio means. It's a new word probably, but it's not something that is difficult to relate with. So you should be able to have an understanding and appreciation of it. Then you should be able to find the ratio of two quantities. And finally, you should be able to express a ratio as a fraction. Okay, so let's just get right to it without wasting time. So ratio. What is ratio? Ratio is a way of comparing two quantities that are similar. I'll take that again. Ratio is a method of comparing two quantities that are similar, that you measure with the same unit of measurement. Let's look at this. These are balls. So they are similar, although colors are different. There are 4 red balls and there are 7 blue balls. And so when we're talking about ratio, we want to compare quantities that are similar. And then in this case, we say that the ratio of red balls to blue balls is 4 to 7. Because we have 4 red balls, the red balls will come first. There are 4 red balls. And then we have blue balls after that. The blue balls are 7. So we say the ratio of red balls to blue balls, 4 to 7. So when you ask to find ratio, just count the first quantity, the second quantity. If there is a third one, count it, and then put the numbers 4 to 7, and you get the ratio. But this is not how we write it though. We write it like this, 4, and we borrow that colon symbol from the English Studies lesson, and that is what we use to mean 2 in mathematics. So when you see this, it means 4 to 7. It means one quantity is in 4 parts, and the other quantity is in 7 parts. I'm sure you got that right up to this point. No problem, and there will be no problem. Do you recognize the people in this picture? Look at them very well. Perhaps you recognize the man in the middle. Yes, that is the chairman of LASUBEB. And these are the board members. When we say LASUBEB, leave no child behind, these are the people that are working with us and supporting us behind the scenes to ensure that you are not left behind. And so on the board of LASUBEB, we have 2 women and we have 5 men. As you can see by yourself. Okay, so there are 2 women and 5 men. Let's now express these 2 women, 5 men as ratios. We say that the ratio of women to men is 2 to 5. And that is because the women come before the men, and we have 2 women, 5 men. So 2 women, 5 men, 2 to 5. But what about if it is the ratio of the men to the women? Do we say 2 to 5 as well? Of course not. In this case, the ratio of the men to the women will be 5 to 2. And that is because men comes before the women, and there are 5 men 2 women, 5 to 2. So the arrangement is very important. Ratio 2 to 5 is not the same as ratio 5 to 2. And of course, this is called ratio 2 to 5, not 2 ratio 5, as some people call it. It is ratio 2 to 5. So let's move on. In these diagrams, you see that we have rectangles. Some parts are colored black and some parts are colored yellow. And so we can begin to see that we can compare the parts that are colored yellow and the parts that are colored black. Let's see the ratios. For this first diagram, there are 8 black parts and there are 16 yellow parts. So we say that the ratio of black to yellow is 8 to 16. Black to yellow, 8 to 16, not 16 to 8. If you ask for yellow to black, that is 16 to 8. Now, in the second diagram, the same portion of the yellow part is colored yellow. Okay, so we have 4 black parts and 8 yellow parts. And then if we move down, we see that the area is still much the same, but now the yellow parts are now 6 and the black parts are now 3. So the ratio of black parts to yellow parts is 3 to 6. And then we'll go on and we'll say that this one is 2 to 4, and here we have 1 to 2. Now you see all these ratios, the yellow parts are equal throughout and the black parts are equal throughout, but the numbers are different. Do you remember our work on equivalent fractions? We used these same pictures to demonstrate equivalent fractions. So these ratios, do you think they are the same? Of course they are the same, because the area that they are representing did not change throughout the change in the diagram. So what do you think we are going to call these type of ratios? Did I hear you say equivalent ratios? Of course you're correct. These are what we call equivalent ratios. So whether you call it 8 to 16 or 1 to 2 is still the same thing. However, we like to express ratios as lowest terms. It is better to express the ratios in their lowest terms. So if you come across ratio of 8 to 16, do not leave your answer like this. Reduce it to the lowest term. And how do we do that? Of course, we do that by dividing. So that's what we're going to be doing now. Here is an example. We have 2 children, Umar and Z. Umar weighs 70 kilograms and Z weighs 14 kilograms. We are asked to write the ratio of Umar's mass to Z's mass. So what we're going to do is just bring it out. Umar and Z. Umar is 70 kilograms, Z is 14 kilograms. And so we can just say 70 to 14 for Umar to Z. But remember that we must leave our ratios in lowest terms. But also it is important that we remove the units, because when we are comparing quantities, we do not need the units. They are already similar quantities. So we eliminate the units. In this case, we're comparing mass. Kilogram will go away. If they are kilogram and kilogram, just eliminate them, because ratios do not need units. We focus on only the numbers, and that should make your work easier to deal with. Now we have 70 to 14. All we need to do is just reduce to the lowest terms. We can reduce with 2, just like we did with our highest common factor. Do you remember highest common factor? Good. We do just that. 2 goes in 70 35 times, 2 goes in 14 7 times. We can still reduce it further, because 7 goes in 35 5 times, 7 goes in 7 1 time. And now these are the lowest terms. So we say that the ratio of Umar's mass to Z's mass is 5 to 1. I'll take that again. The ratio of Umar's mass to Z's mass is 5 to 1. And why is that? Because Umar comes in the question, Umar comes before Z. So in the final answer, the number for Umar must come before that of Z. So 5 to 1 is not the same as 1 to 5. And similarly, the ratio of Z's mass to Umar's mass is 1 to 5. And that is because Z here comes before Umar. So the number for Z will come before Umar, and you have to write it backwards, 1 to 5, like this. I believe that was clear enough. Good, because you're going to take one of your own right now. You are to find the ratio of the mass of bag C to bag A in this diagram, bag C weighs 150 grams, bag A weighs 600 grams. We have just 30 seconds. Begin. Alrighty then, it should be done by now. Let's see how that is done exactly. Now, because we are finding the ratio of bag C to bag A, I have opted to put bag C first and bag A second. Okay, so bag C weighs 150 grams and bag A weighs 600 grams. Now it's time to reduce. And so it's easy. Okay, before that, we just remove the units. We do not need the grams. Then we'll reduce, and it's easy to reduce with 10. So our teachers will usually say 0 cancels 0, but what that simply means is that they are dividing by 10. So if we divide 150 by 10, we get 15, and here we get 60, because 1 0 will cancel 1 0. So you have 15 and 60. Now, we can still reduce further with 5. 5 goes in 15 3 times, 5 goes in 60 12 times. We can still reduce further. 3 goes in 3 1 time, 3 goes in 12 4 times. And so the ratio of bag C to bag A is 1 to 4. Is that what you got? Good job you then. Let's check out another one. Consider this problem. It takes Mr. Ade 45 minutes to get to work by bus. On his way back, he treks and he spends 1 hour 20 minutes. What is the ratio of the times he spent to and from work? The time he spent to work is 45 minutes. The time that he spent coming back from work is 1 hour 20 minutes. I'm going to allow you to do this. Compare 45 minutes to 1 hour 20 minutes, and I want to give you a hint. Change your 1 hour 20 minutes, change everything to minutes, and it will be easy to find the ratio. I'll give you 1 minute for this. Begin. Alrighty then, I believe that you should have made some progress by now. Let's see how this is done. Okay, going to work in the morning, Mr. Ade spent 45 minutes because he went by bus. And then on his way back, he spent 1 hour 20 minutes because he walked. Okay, so to compare these two, I'm not going to just cancel minutes and minutes and neglect the hour. First, as I have told you earlier, it is better to change the times to minutes first. That's exactly what we're going to do. Okay, so 45 minutes, 1 hour 20 minutes is 80 minutes because 1 hour is 60 minutes. 60 plus 20, 80 minutes. Okay, now it's easy to just cancel out the minutes and focus on the numbers 45 and 80, which we're just going to reduce to the lowest ends. We use 5. 5 goes in 45 9 times, 5 goes in 80 16 times. And so the ratio of the time in the morning to the time in the afternoon, the time to work and the time from work is 9 to 16. I believe that you got that right as well. Well, if you didn't, you probably have more time to practice with the assignment that is going to be given. Now let's look at the final aspect of the work. Ratios as fractions. You would have deduced from the initial part of the lesson that ratios are in a way related to fractions. Since we have equivalent fractions, we also have equivalent ratios. Okay, let's take a look at this picture again, the 4 red balls and the 7 blue balls. The question says, what fraction of the blue balls are the red balls? What fraction of the blue balls are the red balls? And remember that fractions mean parts. So it's like saying, what parts, how many parts of the blue ball, the blue balls rather, are the red balls taking? And it is very easy to find this. The red balls take up some part of the blue balls, okay? The red balls do not stand as tall as the blue balls. They are not up to the blue balls in number. But if they had been up to the blue balls, they would have gotten to this place. But they are stopping here, which means they are occupying 4 spaces out of 7 possible spaces. There are 7 blue balls, so the blue balls occupy 7 spaces. And out of that, the red balls are just occupying 4. And that is 4 out of 7. So 4 out of 7 parts. So we say that the red balls are 4/7 of the blue balls. And it's very easy to see, it's just the same ratio, because the red balls to the blue balls are 4:7, then the red balls will be 4/7, 4 out of 7 of the blue balls. Now this is the picture of the board members of LASUBEB once again. Okay, here we know that there are 2 women and 5 men. But how do we express the women as a fraction of the men? Well, there are 2 women, 5 men. So we say the women are 2/5 of the men. The women are 2/5 of the men. So watch the arrangement again. Women, 2, 5 for the men. So, but if it is the men that we want to express as a fraction, then we say the men are 5/2, like 5/2 of the women. Or if you change this to an improper fraction, it is 2.5. So we say the men are 2.5 times of the women. And that is to tell you that the ratio itself, when you see a ratio of 1 to 4, it doesn't mean there is 1 quantity or 4 quantity. It's just expressing how 1 quantity is related to another. So in this case, there could be 4 women and 10 men. The ratio will still be 2 to 5 because it is in the lowest form. All right, so take this one. So I want you to try this one as your final activity for today. You are to write Z's weight as a fraction of Umar's weight. You are also to write Umar's weight as a fraction of Z's weight. It's just going to take you 20 seconds because I've written out the ratios for you. You have 20 seconds then. Begin. Alrighty then, I'm sure you did not lose your way. So here we see that Z's weight is 1/5 of Umar's weight, and that is because Z has 1 and we're interested in finding the fraction of the fraction for Z. That is 1 out of 5, and that is 1/5 of Umar's weight. But in Umar's case, Umar is 5 to 1, and that is 5/1, and that's like saying Umar's weight is 5 times of Z's weight. As you can see, Umar's weight is 5 times of Z's weight. I'm sure that you got that right. Good job, you. Now to your homework. We'll have enough time to practice a lot of the concepts that we have learned today. We have learned how to find ratios in their lowest forms. We have learned how to change ratios to fractions. Okay, write these questions. You have 1 minute. Begin. Alrighty then. It is now time to hand you over to Uncle Popo for the General Studies lesson, which promises to be interesting as usual. Until I come your way in the next lesson, remain wonderful mathematicians.
Hello pupils, you are welcome to General Studies class. I am Uncle Popo. Let's open today's lesson the usual way we've been doing. Uncle Popo is here.
I am also here.
Good. We are here together.
100% attention.
Good one. 100% attention is what I need from you. Today's lesson will be an interesting one, and the subject for today is basic science and technology. In our last lesson, we talked about fertilizers, and we talked about the artificial and natural fertilizer. So today we are moving on to another topic relating to what we discussed in our last lesson. And today's lesson the topic is improving crop yield. Improving crop yield. Let's look at the learning objectives for today. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to define food crops and cash crops and give examples. And you should be able to describe how to improve farming and food production. Those are the learning objectives. Let's look at this picture here. This is an evidence of improved food production because with the use of machines and a large area of land. So this is one of those things we want to talk about today. Food crops. The first thing is, when we talk about food, we are actually talking about food crops and cash crops. Food crops and what? Cash crops. Those are the two we want to talk about. What are food crops? Food crops are crops that are grown for food only. They are crops that are grown for what? For food only. And what are the examples? Such crops are grown by family members on farms that are not far from their houses. This is also called subsistence farming. It's a kind of farming where maybe a family member will have at the back of the house, maybe at their backyard or in front of their house, a small space where they can grow some certain crops with the use of local implements. That's a subsistence farming. And such kind of crops that will be grown there will be regarded as food crop because it's just mainly planted for food. It cannot be sold in a large quantity, maybe to a city, to another place, or to another country, because the food produced there are produced in very small quantity. So those are food crops. They are mainly grown by family members on farms that are not far from their house. What are the examples? We have different examples of food crops, and I classify them under different categories. Under cereals, that's what we mean by cereals or grains. They are food that are uncountable in nature, just like rice, wheat, maize, beans, food like that you cannot count them one after the other. They are uncountable. So we have those ones are examples of cereals, the rice, wheat, maize. They are example of food crops. And you can see the picture I'm referring to here. And another example is we have under fruit, we have food crops that are fruit, like any kind of fruit. Pawpaw, orange, tell me your favorite fruit. Okay, it's not written there. If it's there, mango, banana, pineapple, all kind of fruit, they are also food crops. Let's look at another one. You can see different kinds of fruit here. Next one is all kinds of vegetables. All kinds of vegetables too are food crop, like your spinach, your cucumber, your water leaf. All these are also food crops. All kinds of vegetables. Likewise, and we have other foods, like others are yam, cocoyam, all kinds of food that are sold that you can buy in the market for your consumption. They are your food crops. Yam, I know some of you like eating yam, especially with fried egg. Good one. Now let's move on to cash crops. Cash crops. What are we talking about? Cash crops are crops that are grown for food and commercial purposes. These ones are grown for food and commercial purposes. What do I mean by commercial purpose? That means you produce it and you sell it. They produce it in very large quantity, and it could be sold to another city, it could be sold to another country just to make money. It's different from the one you plant at the back of your house or in a very small garden. So that is the difference. So cash crops are crops that are grown for food and commercial purposes. For food and commercial purposes. Examples, we have cotton. Say that. Cotton is an example of cash crop. We also have timber. Say that. Timber is also an example of cash crop. They are mainly planted and grown for commercial purposes. Another one is rubber. So it's another example of cash crop. Groundnut. Groundnut is another example of cash crop. Cocoa. Cocoa too is another example of cash crop. As a matter of fact, cocoa has been our major source of income then, where the farmers will plant cocoa and we try to export our cocoa products to another country, and we were making money through cocoa production then. So all these are examples of cash crops. Cotton, timber, rubber, groundnut, cocoa are examples of cash crops. Just look at the pictures of what I've just talked about, the cash crops, the timber, groundnut. Some of you are very familiar with groundnut. You've been eating groundnut. Cocoa, I know some of you might have not seen how cocoa looks before. So this is how it looks. See it, and when it's being broken into two, you see what we have inside it. This is just example of cocoa. We have cotton. I will tell you what we are using all these cash crops to make in the course of this lesson. How do we improve farming and food production? That's what we want to talk about now. How to improve farming and food production. In our last lesson, we talked about using fertilizer to improve the soil fertility. So we want to talk more on how to improve farming and food production. I know in Nigeria we need to have food in abundance so that we can eat to satisfaction. Now let's look at the following ways. Leave the bush to fallow. Leave the bush to do what? To fallow. What does that mean? This means that we should not farm the land for some years in order to regain soil fertility. Leaving the bush to fallow means you should leave the land and you don't farm on that land for some years. Why? We are doing that so that the soil will regain its fertility, so that anything you plant on it will be able to germinate effectively. Next is use manure to enrich the soil. We talked about in our last lesson using of manure to enrich our soil. That's another way. Next one is adopt crop rotation. Adopt crop rotation. What do we mean by that? You plant different types of crops on the same farmland at different periods. Planting different types of crops on the same farmland at different periods. That's crop rotation. You are rotating the kind of crop you plant. So you plant different types of crops on the farmland at different periods. Let's look at how we store and preserve our farm produce. How we store, because after improving our crop production, we should have a way to store them effectively. Now we want to talk about storage and preservation of farm produce. Let's look at the way to store all those farm produce. There were various storage methods in the olden days. This included, in the olden days during our forefathers' time, there are different ways of saving or preserving their products. So this included burying yam tubers in the ground or storing them in the barns. That's one of the ways used by our forefathers. The yam tubers, they bury it in the ground. Some will say it will take them another effort to do that. Yes, that's the way they store their yam tubers, or storing them in barns. That's one way of storing in the olden days. So this is the yam bands I'm talking about. And we still use yam bands in today's farming system. Some dried harvested seed crops were preserved in tall towers. That's what we are referring to silos. Tall towers, that's silos. I'll still show you the picture of what silos look like. Seed drums, polythene bags. This is another way where they preserve or save our harvested seed crops in tall towers. Silos, this is how silos look like. The harvested seed crop, they are stored into it. But in modern times, everything has changed. How do we preserve now? Crops can be preserved by the use of chemicals. Today, they use chemicals to preserve most of our food. So, and the use of chemicals like fungicides and insecticides. When they use those chemicals, it will help to preserve the food. That's what we use today in farming system. Then all these crops we are talking about, how do we transport it to different parts of the country or to another country? Transportation of crops, and the food and cash crops can be transported through the following ways, and those are the means of transportation: road, rail, water, or air. Those are the means of transportation, and we transport our food crops and cash crops through the following means. Depending on the area and the quantity of goods, depending on the area, you may decide to transport it by road. Depending on the quantity, if it's liquid substance, it could be through the water. Or you want to export it to another country, it could be through air. So these are the means through which food crops and cash crops are transported to different parts: by road, rail, water, or air, depending on the area and the quantity of goods. So you are seeing what I'm talking about. This by road, by water, by air, and by rail. Now let's see how you have given me your 100% attention in today's lesson. Question number 1. Give 2 examples each of cash crops and food crops. Question number 2. List any 2 ways to improve farming and food production. List any 2 ways to improve farming and food production. Your time starts now. Uncle Popo is here. I believe you are still there. Eyes on me. Good. Let's mark the questions. The answers now. Examples of cash crops. 2 examples. We have cocoa, rubber, granules, tell me more, timber, and so on. Food crops, I think, is a very cheap question to really get. Examples: rice, beans, yam, vegetables, fruit, all kind of food like that. So list any 2 ways to improve farming and food production. Leave the bush to fallow, use manure to enrich the soil, adopt crop rotation, practice mixed farming, and so on. We have come to the end of today's lesson. Until next time, next lesson, Uncle Popo says, keep on studying. Bye.
My wonderful pupils, we have come to the end of another exciting episode of the Classroom in Your Home.
We hope that you enjoyed yourself, as we have enjoyed ourselves working with you today and learning with you as well. Now, today is Monday, and as usual, we're going to be announcing winners for the active participants of this program.
Yes.
With me, I have Oluwabori Oyaleke, Vetland Junior Grammar School in Ifakojaye, and Erioluwa Ojemuyiwa, Habotul International School, Ikorodu. Auntie Fumi, who won with you?
With me, I have my beautiful Obatu Ashedemilade from Kingdom Heritage Model School, Alimosho LGA, and Fasheun Boluwatife from Great Oxford School, Berigbe, that is in Ikorodu LGA. Uncle Popo, over to you.
With me, I have Abib, St. Stephen's YS School, Lagos Island, and Fahan Badmos, Rhizome School, Oworo Shoki, Koshofe LGA.
Yes.
You have all done well.
Yes.
And we have for you, as usual, packs of
Good Life Magic Juice.
But for now, and from all of us here, we say,
Good job, you.
Now, you are expected to send the phone number, to send a message rather, to any of our phone numbers, and we are going to tell you how you're going to redeem your prizes. The link for today's online assessment is bit.ly/LASUBEB lesson 55. The link again is bit.ly/LASUBEB lesson 55. Remember, that's our way of knowing how well you're performing, because we want to help you to improve on your performance.
Taking the online assessment is based on if you have access to either your daddy's, your mommy's, your uncle's, or your auntie's Android or smartphones. If not, there's no problem. Just send your questions, your comments, and your homework to 081 5086 5663. Please do not call that line. Do not call that line.
Yeah.
Just send SMS and WhatsApp messages only. And when you are sending your homework, please indicate your name, your school, your class, and your local government. That is the only way we can identify you to be able to reward you accordingly. Uncle Popo.
Today's lessons were amazing, just like the previous ones. And these lessons are on LASUBEB YouTube channel for you to watch. In case you missed any of the classes, or you want to watch at your own preferred time, subscribe to LASUBEB YouTube channel to get notification when new videos are uploaded. The classroom in your home could be watched live on Facebook, the same time airing on television, through the page showing on your screen.
Till our next lesson, when we shall meet again on another wonderful edition of the classroom in your home, please remember to do your homework.
Wash your hands regularly.
Schools have not been asked to resume yet, so please stay at home and
Stay safe. LASUBEB, leave no child behind.
Dear pupils, parents, and guardians, let me start by thanking you for being a part of all our remote learning platforms, particularly our television program, The Classroom in Your Home. Each feedback has been awesome. Good job, you. Our teachers have been working assiduously to bridge the learning loss during this critical period. Therefore, I am pleased to inform you that the classroom in your home has been extended to accommodate the lower primary classes and a dedicated lesson to cater for our special needs pupils in line with our mandate of providing an all-inclusive and quality basic education in our dear state. This program is fully sponsored by the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, and supported by the Lagos State Universal Basic Education Board under the COVID-19 Blended Learning Intervention Initiative. Please encourage your wards to tune in and take every advantage of this laudable program. Also remember, this pandemic is not over. Let us continue to abide by all health and safety guidelines as stipulated by the government. At LASUBEB, we are determined to leave no child behind in our quest to improve the standard of basic education in our state. Thank you.